Hello Flickering Myth family and welcome to our channel. My name is EJ Marino and we have a new horror movie review. I'm going to be jumping into Resident Evil. Welcome to Raccoon City. Oh boy, I have not had a movie like this in quite some time where I'm stuck on how I feel about it. On one hand, I think this is a fun, cheesy, 90s inspired action horror film that's definitely really good. Like, there's some elements that make me think of things like Day of the Dead and Return of the Living Dead, some of my favorite movies in the genre, the zombie genre. So that's the positive. But on the other hand, as an adaptation of Resident Evil, a game that I consider my favorite game, at least that first one, especially that remake for the GameCube, oh my goodness, I was addicted to it. So, as a fan of this was a bit hard. This is a very loose adaptation. I would say this is just inspired by Resident Evil. Definitely not taking plots from the games, specifically 1 and 2. Definitely not taking some, not pulling from that directly. So that was a bit jarring for me, because this is definitely not as out there as the Mila Jovovich, Paul W.S. Anderson ones. Yeah, definitely not as removed from the source material as that, but this feels like we're watching our main characters from the games in a prequel, which would work if they weren't in the settings for the first and second game. So this is a bit of a mess for me in that aspect. But overall, I thought this was a very fun film. I loved the characters. I loved the action. I thought this was actually genuinely pretty scary, especially compared to the very action-heavy films that were in the last Resident Evil grouping. I was really happy to see some good jump scares, some good horror moments. I thought this was very, very entertaining. Is it the best movie I've ever seen? No. The visual effects can get a bit wonky. Some of the characters can be a bit flat, but I kind of went into this expecting one thing and was delivered another thing, and that other thing wasn't that bad. When comparing this to the game, it's a bit difficult. People like Jill and Claire and Chris are pretty untouched. Chris Redfield, as much as I like the character and as much as Robbie Amell does well with the role, he's a generic action-y guy who's like a good cop, a good person, just trying to make things happen. Fine, that's portrayed pretty accurately here. Claire, now while Claire has a different background, a different story, a different reason why she's in Raccoon City, she feels very much like her video game counterpart, which is really, really good. That works for me. Same thing with Jill. I like the actress. She's stunning, like truly so gorgeous. I was like obsessed with her. But, you know, she's playing Jill Valentine. Now, where this gets a bit harder for me is Wesker and Leon. Wow, these are very big departures from what we usually know from these characters. I thought Avan Jogia did very good as Leon. This was just not the Leon I'm used to. He's a bit kind of pathetic at first. Usually Leon, while it's his first day, while he's not the most skilled cop, he doesn't feel as weak as this one does. Leon does definitely grow throughout the film, so I do like to enjoy that. It was just a bit jarring. Not just the race swap or changing the actor. I have no issues with that. I actually think he's a good Leon in the aesthetic sense. I was fine with that. Just the way they changed his character it's a bit jarring. It's not my favorite thing. Same thing with Wesker. I think Tom Hopper does very, very, very good with this role. I just don't like this Wesker. This is not my Wesker. Hashtag not mine. I know that they were trying to get away from the I'm just an evil mad scientist Mr. Smith ripoff. I understand why they changed his character and what they were trying to do. Make him a bit more cinematic, a bit more layered, which you need in a movie. It's just not my Wesker. I like Wesker to be a bit more evil. I know they were trying to get away from just that one-dimensional evilness, but some of these other characters are barely two-dimensional, so just give me my Wesker. There is some stuff that I can definitely see them, like, pushing towards the future with this character, so that's going to be really interesting to see. What I also do like from the game is they're definitely inspired by some stuff. There's, like, references to the Ashford twins, the way they use Lisa Trevor, there's some G-Virus stuff. Definitely really like the inclusion of game things. You can definitely see they're trying to homage the game. They're definitely in love with it. Feels way more accurate than the last movies with Mila and all that, but it is a bit jarring for when you're going, okay, we're going to go into the mansion, so you turn left at here, then you're going to go see that first zombie. None of that is there. Wesker's motivation's a bit different. He gets to play Moonlight Sonata, not Jill. Like, those are the things that I'm like, okay, I'm getting used to this. Okay, stuff like in the police station. The liquor doesn't show up there, shows up at a different location. Just the stuff that you know from the games. It's not going to be here. I don't think that's the worst thing ever. It just took me some getting used to be like, I know everything about at least the first 4 games. oh my goodness, we're not getting into the first 4 games. Okay, now for the future, I can see them still going this route, definitely inspired by. We'll talk about that in the next segment of what they can do going forward, but overall, I will say, for video game fans, lower your expectations. Put them in the middle. This is not a direct adaptation. Take this as inspired by Resident Evil, not adapting it. Now, what about the future of Resident Evil movies? I am curious, because this movie really tries to set up a sequel, from the very MCU post-credit scene to the way this just ends in a very like, okay, well, this movie's over. It's definitely trying to say we want more of this, and I would possibly watch another one of these, maybe for sure. Now, as I said with Dune, as I say with so many things, if this was a television series, I would be really into that. The way this was paced, these characters, I think this could have definitely been benefited from a longer form storytelling, which is kind of a big common complaint a lot of the times, especially when adapting like intellectual properties. I always say go for the TV route than the movie route. You could do way more with your time and your characters, but I do like that they're definitely trying to set something up. Now, at the end of this movie, it does get a bit MCU-ish with a big villain coming out and all our characters coming together to fight them, and I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. So yeah, I definitely see where they're inspired by. This is way more horror-based, but they're not dumb. They're looking around, they're seeing the cinematic universe kind of thing and going, okay, how do we set this up? How do we set up Wesker as the Wesker we know in the future? How do we get Leon to the guy who ends up like watching the president's daughter? Like, where do we go for these characters? And you can see they planted the seeds. I hope they water them and I hope they grow. I want to see more from these characters and this universe. It is just a bit hard because it's just like, oh, this definitely feels like a setup to a sequel, which isn't always the best for a first film. This works as its own isolated story, but when you get to that ending, especially that kind of cliffhanger ending they give, you're like, but what about more? Oh my goodness. Okay, so only thing I will say now, I'm going to get into slight spoilers here, so if you don't want to be spoiled at all, leave the review now. You got my overall feelings. Thank you guys for tuning in. But my future prediction is we're definitely going to go the route of Code Veronica X and maybe 4. I can see the new group that we have, the people who are left over, which is Claire, Jill, Chris, and Leon. They're going to be hunted by maybe possibly Wesker in the future, with Ada who shows up as well. Yeah, this is definitely showing some stuff that they're building. We can have basically Ada and Wesker in their own little group, and then we have the core 4 going up against Umbrella. Maybe they go look for the Ashford twins and go deal with that stuff. Maybe Umbrella sends a crazy Nemesis-style monster after these 4 to kill them. Maybe these 4 start their own version of Stars. There's potential in here. I know all of that just sounds so crazy for hardcore game fans, but there's potential to do some more with this, and I'm excited for that. Alright everyone, that is it for my review of Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. I enjoyed the film for the most part. It's definitely B horror movie trash, but that is exactly what I like. I will prefer B horror stuff over the most pretentious awards contender any day of the week, but that's just me. What do you guys think of this film? What do you guys think of Resident Evil movies? Let me know let me know all your feelings down in the comments below. We've gone through a journey from the animated films to the Mila Jovovich movies to this film. To be a Resident Evil fan, it's a bit interesting, so let me know your feelings down in the comments below. Subscribe to Flickering Myth because we make videos like this every single week, and give me a thumbs up if you did enjoy. Alright everyone, let's talk about Welcome to Raccoon City down below.